In a bustling international terminal filled with the hum of announcements and the shuffle of hurried footsteps, Elena Rivera, a poised, successful business traveler, stepped into a day that would test the bounds of justice and human decency. Dressed with effortless elegance after a long, demanding conference, she seemed to blend into the crowd. Yet, her calm presence sparked a chain of events driven by deep-seated prejudice. A narrow-minded fellow traveler, unwilling to embrace diversity, voiced unfounded suspicions about Elena's credentials, catching the attention of two airport officers whose own biases clouded their judgment. Their unwarranted suspicions soon transformed into a public display of intimidation. As the tension built, Elena's dignity was unjustly challenged by actions and words laced with discrimination. What began as a routine wait in the priority line escalated into a moment of profound injustice, one that would not only shake the confidence of those in uniform but also reveal the true strength of a woman determined to defend her rights. This is the opening chapter of a story that reminds us how a single act of courage can expose systemic flaws and ignite a call for accountability. Stay with us as Acts of Kindness Stories brings you a narrative that is as hard-hitting as it is inspirational, proving that the fight for fairness begins with standing up against prejudice. Following the tension of that fateful moment, the atmosphere in the bustling terminal shifted dramatically. As the echoes of raised voices and stunned silence reverberated among the passengers, Elena Rivera was escorted aside by officers Richard Miller and James Carter, two men whose demeanor betrayed a deep-seated bias that had been ignited by a single, prejudiced complaint. The unsettling incident had unfolded in plain sight, drawing puzzled stares and murmurs from travelers who had gathered around, their initial curiosity now replaced by concern and dismay. Elena, who had spent the morning engaged in an intensive legal conference, had looked forward to a smooth journey home. Clad in smart, understated business attire, she carried an aura of quiet determination that resonated even when confronted with blatant injustice. It was not merely the inconvenience of an unprovoked stop that unsettled those who witnessed the event. It was the raw, unfiltered display of discrimination that shamed an entire institution that was meant to embody fairness and respect. In the priority line at the departure gate, an influential yet irate traveler, Mrs. Clarissa Monroe, had become the unwitting catalyst for the episode. Known for her ostentatious style and a penchant for making her displeasure known, Mrs. Monroe had launched a vociferous tirade against Elena. Her baseless accusations, laced with disdain and racial prejudice, were delivered with such force and conviction that they immediately caught the attention of officers Miller and Carter. Believing the complaints without question, the officers approached Elena with an authority that implied a duty to protect the comfort and exclusivity of a select few. The situation escalated swiftly. With no pause to verify the validity of the accusations, the two officers demanded Elena's identification and boarding pass. Their words, however, were not mere formalities but filled with condescension and insinuations that seemed to question her very right to be there. Elena, composed under pressure, calmly presented her documents. Yet, every explanation was met with a sneer and a dismissive gesture, as if her appearance and polished demeanor were evidence enough of some imagined transgression. Passengers watched on in a mixture of shock and helplessness, caught in a moment where the rules of decency and law appeared to be cruelly subverted. As tensions mounted, the officer's rhetoric grew more aggressive. Officer Carter, his voice rising with anger, sneered at Elena's reluctance to submit quietly, branding her questions as insolence. In that charged moment, Elena's dignity was further assaulted, not just by the officers, but by a system that seemed all too ready to silence dissent in the name of expediency. Her calm response, delivered with measured firmness and an unwavering commitment to truth, underscored the gravity of the injustice. "I am a citizen, protected by the same rights every person in this country enjoys," she declared, her tone firm enough to cause the officers to falter, if only for an instant. The confrontation reached its climax when, in a display of absolute disregard for her rights, Officer Carter abruptly moved to restrain Elena, securing her wrists in handcuffs before the eyes of the assembled crowd. The metallic clink of the cuffs echoed like a verdict of guilt, punctuating the silent horror that had overtaken the terminal. Each step Elena took felt imbued with both shame and strength, a powerful testament to the resilience of someone who had spent their career championing fairness in the courtroom. Once led away from the public area, Elena was taken to a small, cramped processing room in the airport's police station. The stark fluorescent lights did little to soften the harsh reality of her situation. There, within those confining walls, the absurdity of the entire ordeal became more pronounced. As questioning ensued, the narrative constructed by officers Miller and Carter was nothing but a contrived version of a disturbance, a convenient excuse to justify their actions, based on nothing more substantial than a single discriminatory complaint. In that moment of interrogation, with each question probing deeper into her identity and professional background, Elena's unyielding presence grew even more formidable. In response to inquiries about her occupation, she revealed an earth-shattering truth. She was not just any ordinary passenger. With a measured calm that betrayed no fear despite the visible marks left by the cuffs, Elena announced, "I am Chief Judge Elena Rivera of the Federal Court of Appeals." The revelation silenced the room instantly. The duty officer, who had been processing her case with an air of routine detachment, dropped his pen in disbelief. In that short span of time, the narrative had irrevocably shifted, exposing a severe miscarriage of justice. The stunned silence that followed was punctuated by the officers' sudden change in demeanor. Their bravado crumbled, replaced by a palpable panic as the gravity of their actions sank in. The public humiliation they had inflicted on a leading figure of the legal system was now their undoing. Their faces drained of color, and even the nearby staff could not mask the shock that rippled through the station. The consequences of their decisions were about to unfold in ways none of them had anticipated. News of the arrest spread through the terminal with alarming speed. In less than an hour, the airport's internal affairs team, senior security officials, and federal agents converged on the scene. The airport police chief, accompanied by his top aides, arrived to confront the far-reaching ramifications of the officers' conduct. Their mission was clear: to restore a sense of order and accountability in the wake of an incident that had shaken the foundations of public trust. Simultaneously, communications were set into motion at the highest levels of the judiciary and law enforcement. Within minutes, agents from the U.S. Marshals Service and high-ranking members from the Court of Appeals arrived, reinforcing the critical nature of the case. The incident had become more than a local dispute. It had morphed into a landmark event that exposed the dangers of unchecked bias and the cascading consequences of racial profiling. In a series of swift but decisive actions, the police chief took full responsibility for the regrettable episode. A formal apology was issued on the spot, acknowledging the officer's failure to uphold the law and the undeniable breach of civil rights. Both Officer Miller and Officer Carter were immediately suspended from duty, their equipment confiscated as a precautionary measure pending a comprehensive investigation. The airport's Internal Affairs Division, now working in tandem with federal authorities, began meticulously collecting all available evidence, from surveillance footage and body-worn camera recordings to eyewitness testimonies provided by passengers and staff alike. Amid this rapidly unfolding crisis, the judiciary's commitment to justice shone brightly. In the processing room, Elena's steady recounting of events was a reminder of the responsibility borne by those who hold power. She detailed each moment, from the inciting remarks of Mrs. Monroe to the unequivocal abuse of authority by the officers, with clarity and precision. Her account, corroborated by the mounting digital evidence, painted an irrefutable picture of racial bias and systemic failure. The testimony was not only a demand for personal vindication but also a call to reform an entire system that had allowed discrimination to fester unchecked. The repercussions for the officers proved to be swift and severe. Facing federal criminal charges for violations of civil rights, they were held accountable for their actions under the strictest scrutiny of the law. Their conduct, which had threatened the dignity of a high-ranking judicial figure, underscored the crucial need for continuous oversight and reform in law enforcement agencies nationwide. The case quickly assumed national attention, sparking debates and conversations across diverse communities about the necessity of training, accountability, and the genuine protection of citizens' rights. Throughout the ordeal, Elena maintained her composure and focus. Though humiliated and physically restrained, her resolve only deepened, a resolve that inspired many who had watched with bated breath as the drama unfolded. In that small, stark room, her measured words transcended the immediate pain, sending a powerful message to every individual who had ever felt marginalized or disrespected, that justice, when pursued with integrity, would always prevail. As authorities began processing the evidence and the broader implications of the incident were analyzed, the narrative transformed from one of personal tragedy to a broader dialogue on civil rights. The situation served as an invaluable lesson. When systemic injustice is challenged by unwavering bravery and accountability, it sets a precedent that resonates well beyond the confines of an airport terminal. Elena's experience, though deeply personal, became a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity, a definitive reminder that every act of discrimination carries consequences, not only for those who suffer but also for those who perpetrate it. Every detail, from the initial false complaint by Mrs. Monroe to the final resolute declaration by Chief Judge Rivera, underscored a shared truth: fairness and equality are not negotiable. The chain reaction of events that afternoon highlighted both the vulnerability inherent in our systems and the strength that arises when individuals choose to stand firm in the face of injustice. Each step of the investigation, every apology offered, and the public outcry that followed were all testaments to a societal commitment to uphold dignity and respect for every citizen. In sharing this story, Acts of Kindness Stories not only chronicles a poignant moment of accountability but also illuminates a path forward. A path that demands rigorous introspection and transformative action from every level of society. The institutional changes that began in the wake of this incident are a beacon of hope and a firm declaration that bias has no place in our communities. Through proactive engagement and unwavering courage, a system long marred by prejudicial practices can evolve, ensuring that every individual is treated with the fairness and respect they rightfully deserve. What unfolded that day was more than a personal ordeal. It was a powerful reminder that even in the midst of harsh injustice, the seeds of transformation are sown by those courageous enough to stand up and speak out. The ensuing investigation and ensuing reforms showcased not only the vulnerabilities within the system, but also its capacity for self-correction when met with undeniable evidence and moral clarity. Each measure taken, from the officer's immediate suspension to the subsequent federal charges, embodied the principle that no one is above the law and that every act of discrimination will be met with a determined pursuit of justice. Through every twist and turn of that intense day, Elena Rivera's unwavering commitment to truth and equity resonated deeply, inspiring others to confront injustice wherever it may arise. Her journey, marked by personal sacrifice and an unwavering dedication to the rule of law, serves as a clarion call for reform, a call that reminds us all that the fight against racial prejudice and systemic abuse is far from over, but it is a fight that can be won with courage, compassion, and unwavering resolve. This unfolding chapter in the journey toward a more equitable society challenges us to re-examine our own roles in combating bias and fostering a culture of accountability. The actions taken on that day, as well as the subsequent legal and institutional responses, reinforced an essential truth. Meaningful change often begins with a single courageous act of defiance in the face of oppression, a truth that will continue to echo through the halls of justice for years to come. In the aftermath of that extraordinary day, the echoes of injustice and the resilience of truth continue to resonate. Elena's unwavering stand transformed a moment of personal affront into a powerful catalyst for systemic change, proving that courage can challenge even the most deeply ingrained biases. The fallout from that incident rippled through the corridors of power, reminding us that accountability is not just a concept, it is the foundation of a fair society. As reforms were set in motion and the strength of collective resolve became evident, the lessons learned from Elena's ordeal serve as an enduring inspiration. This narrative isn't just about one woman's struggle. It's a call to everyone who believes in the power of justice to stand up, speak out, and be the change. The story of that day challenges us to reflect on our own roles in building a society free of prejudice, urging us to hold each other accountable and to support every act of kindness that fortifies our communal trust. If this story has stirred something within you, reminding you that every stand against discrimination matters, know that your voice is part of the conversation. Your support amplifies a movement dedicated to ending injustice and creating a more inclusive future. If you found this narrative inspiring, Please take a moment to like, share, and comment below with your thoughts and experiences. And don't forget to subscribe to Acts of Kindness Stories. We're working hard to reach 10,000 subscribers. Every action, every voice matters in the fight for justice and equality. Let's grow this community together and continue to spark meaningful change.